We'll call our work session to order, I guess, is what we're supposed to do. And we're here to talk about the classified salary schedule. So I guess I'll let Mr. Wiggins take the lead.
Okay, I'm going to say something really quickly, and I'm going to turn it over to Terry for a little bit. So Terry and I have been working through salary schedules for the classified staff for the last couple of weeks since we kind of got past the certified. We had actually started working on it before that as well. But there's, I think, don't quote me on this, but there's about 26 different salary schedules across 10 or 11 pages of classified salary schedules. And when I say different schedules, it's different columns, and all of them represent different jobs within the district with different pay. So that's a process. And the last several years, we have done kind of a flat percentage. So whatever we did for teachers, usually for the base of the teachers was a flat percentage. And then we tried to do that same thing for classified, and then attacked a couple of, maybe one a year that we would want to look at and try to revise depending on how we matched up with area schools. So this year, since the certified process was different because of the law, and we did not give kind of a standard raise for certified, we did what the law required, which ended up providing some of our novice teachers and teachers with less experience a much bigger raise than some of our veteran teachers. We decided when we looked at classified, we were going to try to adjust some things and get in more line with other districts and compare some of our job categories and their hourly rates, and try to fix some things that we thought maybe needed to be addressed. So what we're going to present tonight represents the work around that. Tried to give everybody a base raise, but then tried to address some specific categories. So I'm going to let Terry take you through the first few things, attachments at the bottom, and I'll pull it up as you tell me.
Open it. As Jody was saying, there's a different challenge when it comes to looking at our classified salary schedules. You can't compare one column to the next column because you're not comparing apples to apples. You're comparing bananas to cantaloupes and all of these different things. If you will look across the top, you will see that these contracts are a different amount of days and a different amount of hours per day that they are contracted to work for us. So just looking, it's hard to look at a yearly salary and compare it to a mechanic's salary, because the days and the hours are so very different. It's not apples to apples like it is on the teacher salary schedule, which is one schedule that applies to everybody. If you continue to go through, we have a section for like our clerical staff. And then here are all of the indexes. You guys have seen this a million times. We have our custodians and our maintenance on one page and a description of what those jobs are. Our nurses have their own schedule with things on it. Child nutrition has its very own page with the different job categories for them. Transportation is the same. We also, in previous years, have put all of the sub information at the bottom of each schedule. You will see that I've kind of moved that around, or we've moved that around this year to make it a little more clear, a little more clean. We have our mechanics and our fleet manager. We have our scholarship director, our ESOL communication specialist, our guest teacher, VIP supervisor, ASOP administrator, and our licensed social worker, all on another schedule. And so that's because it is so hard to know who's getting a better deal. It's one thing to say everybody's going to get a 2% raise. 2% is 2%. It's another thing when you're having to figure out different schedules of, how much is this really affecting our salaries? How much is this affecting those people in that row? Also, keep in mind that most of the people that are on the classified salary schedule qualify for overtime. They live by how much they're making an hour. And therefore, when I start comparing salaries and looking at salaries in other districts comparable to our classified salaries, I take it all down to a by the hour wage. It's the easiest way to see what is really happening in your district, because $1,000 raise to a para is a lot more to them than it would be to a mechanic. I mean, $1,000 is $1,000, but the percentages are very different. So.
Okay, I want to touch on something really quick. So she talked about hourly wages, and we're going to look at hourly wages here in a second. But if you'll notice in the salary schedules, they're not in the salary schedules by hourly wage. They're in there by a set number. There's a reason for that. Even though they are all mostly hourly employees that qualify for overtime, since we contract with our people and we pay them out over 12 months, we need to have kind of a set number for the year so that we can actually pay them when they're not turning in timesheets, if that makes sense. Is that correct, Terry?
We do. We contract them. We tell them this is the minimum amount you're going to make if you work every day you're contracted to, and this minimal amount of hours. If they work more than that, they get paid more than that. But because we do pay it out in 12 even pays, we have to have something to start with. So it is their base contract divided by 12, and they get the same amount every month, which helps them to budget their household expenses more easily, instead of getting large checks in September because school started in August, and then getting half of a check in January because we were only in school 2 weeks in December. So it helps with their cash flow.
Okay, so the one we were just going through was this year's salary schedules for classified, and it was all black print. So the next one is 8.1 classified salary schedule proposal.
Notice all the red.
And it's those same salary schedules with a lot of red. And just like all the other policies we do, red means new or changed.
So the first schedule that we're going to look at is child nutrition. You can't tell a lot from this, but some of the major changes we made or are suggesting for the child nutrition department is larger steps. They're currently making, every time they make a step up, they get a 13-cent an hour raise. We wanted to raise them up to the minimal that everybody else was getting on their step, which is 17 to 18 cents an hour. So you see all of those at the bottom changing. You notice that there's under cafeteria manager, we've got 8 hours a day. They are currently contracted for 7.5, but they all work 8 hours a day. So that means when they take a sick day, they're short. They only get paid for 7.5 hours because that's what they're contracted to work. So that extra 30 minutes a day that they put in, we can't give it to them because it's not part of their contract. So they're actually working 8, but they're contracted for 7.5. Does that make any sense, or is that kind of cloudy?
So we're writing that.
Mm-hmm.
We're making that.
We are correcting that. We're already paying it. It's not adding to our bottom line. It's just we're writing their vacation days or their sick days.
I think you just clarified that for me. Okay, so we were doing the 7.5, but now it's an 8.
Yes,
Okay.
It's not going to add, that part does not add to the bottom line because we're already paying that.
Okay, yeah. Okay, gotcha.
Okay.
And that's why that 8 hours per day is in red
Yes.
Yes.
at the top,
Yes.
the header.
So the next salary schedule is the clerical position, and I kind of renamed that clerical. You can see that all of the salaries are in red, and that is because we've applied a flat amount to most of these, but it's an increase, so red means change. I have added 2 columns. The 2 columns are the admin assistant 220-day contract and the admin assistant 240-day contract. That's in red on the right. This is nothing new. We have had admin assistants that were 220 days and 240 days. But when somebody wanted to know, how do I look up my salary, and explaining to somebody, well, you go to this line, divide it by 200 days, and then multiply it by your number of days you work, and that's your salary. This just makes it clear where they don't have to do the calculation anymore. The system automatically does it, but I put that out there for clarification. And as we have done interviews in the past couple years, I realized that people looking at our salary schedules automatically assume it doesn't pay what it pays for that length of a contract. Is that clear or no? Again, we're already doing that. It's already in the calculation. We've just never put it down on paper for everybody to be able to see when they are looking at jobs that we have posted on the internet. Jody?
Yes.
Hang on, we're having technical
lost.
problems. I pushed the button or something, I've screwed it up.
So the next salary schedule, if you'll go through your folders on your laptop or your iPads, it is the maintenance department. Nothing has changed other than the percentage, an increase to the base. You will see that there is an increase to the step for the custodian line. It's in red, and that's to be sure we make sure that our custodians, our beginning custodians, and our beginning paras all make the same amount per hour starting. So if paras are making $11, custodians start out at $11. We also make sure that their steps, they're making the same in the steps. That was a decision we made long ago on those positions, that those needed to be equal. And that's always the starting base for our maintenance department schedules. This page, I just moved that to a separate page off of the first. I thought it looked cleaner. The nurses are next, and if you'll notice, these are in alphabetical order. They're not from least favorite to most favorite or anything like that. They're in alphabetical order. The nurses, they have a change to their base. So that's why all of those columns or all of those lines are red. Same thing for the other classified positions. You will notice that the aide position is now on this schedule. It used to be with the clerical people, but since I added those 2 columns, it got squished, and it just did not, I didn't find it appealing to look at, so I just put it there.
And for me, just to be clear on years of experience, that's not just Siloam Springs, right?
No, that's
Okay.
everything that applies to that job,
Okay.
that we can relate to that job, yes.
So when we hire someone
Right.
in that's coming from the outside, the person that's the supervisor recommends a level of experience based on previous work. And so we try to make sure that it actually matches up with what they're going to do for us. But the supervisor usually recommends, and then we sign off on that.
Yeah.
So
Because I was going to say, some positions, I would think, there's crossover from what they've done.
Absolutely.
So our supervisor determines after talking to them.
So as an example, somebody that has CDL that's been driving a truck over the road is probably going to get some experience for that. Even though they haven't been driving a bus with kids in it, it's a similar job. A nurse working in a hospital is going to get experience for that.
And we independent, like, they tell us and our supervisors recommend it, and then we have to verify it. So we verify it. We get job records from their previous employer.
that's
So
what
we're not just saying, they can't just say, well, yeah, I did that for 20 years,
Exactly.
and like we actually, they have, it's all really on their responsibility.
It's
We give them the
theirs to prove it,
information, what they
yeah.
need to provide, and then we have to get the information from them.
But
So,
that's the same for our certified staff. We verify
Sure.
everybody's previous employment. If
And
they
I
want to
assume-
use it towards their experience.
Yeah. To that, I guess the supervisor, whoever, will go back to that person we're hiring and saying, okay, we've set you at, you're at 8 years' experience from what we've gathered. And it's gonna-
Well, it usually happens in HR when they do their
Happens in
paper,
HR.
when they do their paperwork. Once we have all verification sheets,
Right.
then Terry's folks will sit down and write it all out, and it'll be on, they know
So
exactly
they'll
what
know
it
when
is.
they're making the final decision where they're at. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So do we still feel like that the custodial and paras need to be at the matching rates?
It's the way we've always done it. Now, I'm not sure what the justification for that is, to be honest, because that's the way it's always been. Those are the kind of the entry-level jobs on the academic side and on the maintenance custodial side. And so we've tried to keep them at the same start.
Just curious. I know paras jobs have changed over the years.
Yeah.
Well, in our para jobs, if you work in the special education department as a paraprofessional, you get a 10% bump. So it's the flat amount plus 10%.
So some para jobs are a little bit more challenging than others. And we've tried to notice that especially with our special education paras. All right, so she showed you what it is this year. She showed you we're proposing it to be with all those red numbers. Now, there's really no way for you to go through and know what that means to anybody unless you're comparing cell to cell, and that gets a little tricky. So the next one compares hourly rates for all those different jobs. And this second column is the hourly rate currently. The third column is the hourly rate proposed with the amount of increase proposed and the percentage of increase proposed.
And this is by the hour.
This is by the hour. So that makes it a little bit more apples to apples so that we're not comparing a full year salary for a 12-month employee to a full year salary for a 9-month employee, if that makes sense.
And what we started with was a 5.25% raise to the base on each salary lane to start, with their main focuses on our cafeteria workers, our bus drivers, and our paras. Our paras and bus driver and, our cafeteria employees are currently making $11.69 an hour. We propose moving that up to 13, and Mr. Wiggins will get into that in a few minutes. Our custodians and our aides, we are recommending we start them at $15 an hour. And it goes up from there.
So what was our three that our focus was?
Paraprofessionals, aides, cafeteria staff, and bus drivers.
So in doing the para,
Mm-hmm.
custodial kind of came in with it.
Tagged along with it, yes.
So that would be four, that was four if we look at it. I mean, it was really four that got.
But the focus wasn't on custodial, it's just the way we've been doing it. So
Right.
yes, they got pulled in
So-
with that.
Originally, we were hoping to get everybody up to $15 an hour. There are some extenuating circumstances with food service that I want to talk to you about separately after this part that brought us back to $13 an hour for cafeteria and $14.50 for cafeteria manager. And when we tried to get everybody up to 15, then that, because there are certain levels in like maintenance, for example, we have certain levels of employee that go up with skills. and we pay different skill levels there. So if we bump the bottom one up, then it kind of creates a need for a ripple effect up to keep those positions a little bit separated, if that makes sense. Same thing with cafeteria. If we take the cafeteria employee, the food service employee, and bump them up, then cafeteria manager needs to bump up a little bit, and so on and so forth, to keep those gaps a little bit.
Yeah, I guess with paras being a focus, and just trying to think of through custodial and I guess bus aid came up to the same level. How were we saying that paras are the focus? And I know they all
A para
are.
and a bus aide are the same position. One rides a bus and one's in a classroom.
Sure.
So that's the same position.
Yeah.
And I understand where you're coming from. And I don't have an answer as to why those have been tied. I really don't.
Okay.
That's just the way we've operated.
But
It's
you-
kind of like us giving the same percentage raise to the classified staff that we do the certified staff. It's
Sure.
just how we felt it was fair, or however you want to label that.
So just clarify, just from looking at the other sheet, I'm sorry, I'm bouncing back and forth, the one that describes the job, custodial, it's maintenance also tied into that?
There are two, it's different. There is a basic custodial position, and then there is a custodial maintenance position. And
We have a position, one position in our maintenance department that is a part-time custodian, and then he or she, depending on who it is, has other skills. In the past, it has been, somebody had professional painting skills. So they were our district-wide painter, but then they had to cover, because we had to put some things together, but we needed a custodian, we needed a painter, but we couldn't justify a full-time person. So there was a position created where they were basically a half-time custodian, half-time maintenance, and that's where that custodial maintenance column comes from. A custodian is a full-time custodian. A custodial maintenance is part-time custodian and part-time maintenance worker, if that helps you.
Yeah, just evaluating the numbers on that description on this year's that you have for the job is talking about advanced is plumbing, electrical, HVAC, so it's like, oh, electrical in there?
and those are like journeymen. Those are people that haven't quite made it all the way there.
Right.
They have some knowledge. If they're advanced, advanced maintenance has some knowledge in those areas. A maintenance specialist actually has licensed, and so we have a licensed electrician, we have a licensed plumber, we have 2 licensed HVAC people that
So
fall
those-
under maintenance specialists.
Custodian specialist, right? That's the painter, no.
Custodial maintenance.
That's maintenance.
Custodial maintenance. So if you were to go back, and I don't know, you may not have it pulled up anymore, but if you looked back at the
Yeah.
there, that would be the entry level into the maintenance department. That's kind of that's the lowest, for the lack of a term, the entry level position into maintenance. Versus, and then you have the custodial, that's just a full-time custodian assigned to a building all day.
So
Just cleaning responsibility.
is that one within this list?
It is
The painter slash.
the custodial maintenance.
The custodial maintenance, yes.
It is?
I don't see it.
It'd just be general maintenance.
That's what-
General
just a-
maintenance.
General maintenance.
It's listed as general maintenance on there.
Sorry.
Okay, that's where I was getting.
I'm
Yes.
sorry.
Okay, no,
That's
that's
me.
okay.
I have a question.
Okay.
When you said, or it may have been Shane that said it actually now, when you say justify a full-time position, clarify for me a full-time, how many hours that is again?
It's not a set hour limit.
Okay.
A full-time position is whatever the district says a full-time position is for a particular job. Some of our cafeteria staff have full-time positions but only work 4 hours a day. Some work 6, some work 8. They are all full-time positions. Same thing with our bus drivers. Our bus driver contracts are now, well, they're currently only 2.5 hours a day. We are going to move them to 4 because again, they're all working 4 hours. Most
So-
are working 4 hours a day. And to the state, that's considered a full-time job because that's what we say that is.
What I meant by that is we didn't feel like that we had enough custodial work to add another full 8-hour day custodian.
Gotcha.
And we didn't need a full 8-hour a day, 240 days a year painter for that. That's where that job started, was half painter, half custodian.
Yeah.
And it stayed that way, and we've been able to make it work.
Okay,
know.
yeah, that makes sense. I just really wanted clarification, that was all.
So it's easy for me to go to Jody and say, and say, hey, I'd like you to ask the board to ask us yeah, we'll take all the help we can get, but can we truly justify the need to pay somebody, a full-time person?
Sure, yeah.
So, and just a little bit more on that. So a bus driver, if we're going to 4, if 4 hours is full-time for a bus driver now, if they actually drive a route in the morning and afternoon, and they're only on the route for 3, they clock in and out, and they get 3 hours, we only pay them for 3 hours. Okay, and if they go 5 hours, we're gonna pay them for 5 hours, but we have to have something as a base contract so that we can pay 12 months. And if we have a sick day or a vacation, or during COVID, we actually paid our bus drivers for that contracted time, whether they were here or not. And so all of that comes back to that contract that we start off with, but the actual pay on a monthly basis is based on time worked.
And benefits would depend on whether they are a full-time employee or not.
No, benefits depends on the amount of hours that you work. The state says you have to work at least 30 hours a week in order to qualify for health insurance,
30
unless
hours.
you're a bus driver.
Now, that's health insurance. Other
Yeah.
benefits,
Other benefits
Yeah.
are different, yes.
Okay,
How many days do parents work?
185.
Just the school days?
Nope, they work 185. They come in before school to help the teachers get their classrooms prepared. They come in before school.
so students are in
Aren't
school
here.
178 days, paras are here 185.
Most of that time beforehand is training.
And custodians the same days?
240.
They're all year
They're all
because
year.
Because
We
they
u-
wax
we
during
use-
the summer.
we deep clean and wax in the summers.
So that goes back to the percentage you're talking about of pay for hours, days versus the difference between the two.
I'm not following
If
you.
they're linked, you said earlier.
They all start out at the same rate per hour.
Hourly.
And so to come up with the custodial's yearly wage, I put 15 times 8 hours a day times 240 hours. That's how they came up, that's how I came up with that pay. For parent, yeah, for
I was
pay,
just thinking
yeah.
back to what you said.
Yeah.
That was-
and for paras, the way we calculated that was $15 an hour for 185 days times 7.25 hours per day. And so that's why you can't compare apples to apples like that. Looking at it.
Bringing that also.
Okay, that's awesome. No, I just ask for clarification, please.
So I'm gonna go on to the next one, and we can come back if you all have questions later, if that's okay. So this one's gonna be hard to see. I'm gonna try to blow it up here. Oop, yep, that worked. All right, so this is kind of a summary. So on the left side is certified. And it gives our total certified salary cost that we anticipate for next year based on the certified salary schedule that you all approved last week, and that for PPC, and that hopefully you'll be approving tonight. 20 million and change, less this year's costs gives us an increase of 1.89 million in salary. Multiply that by benefits, and we made a clerical error when we were working all of this out with you all 2 weeks ago, and we used 1.25 in that equation for benefits, because that's what we had been paying 25% in benefits for several years. But the increased cost of insurance is going to mess that up for us. So it's actually 1.3 now, and that's on the latest information that we have officially. And so the number at the bottom was the change in cost to us after the money that we believe that we're going to get from LEARNs and growth funding. That number was much smaller 2 weeks ago when you all sent it to PPC. It was, I don't remember the exact number, it was in the $4,000 to $5,000 range, I think.
Well, I thought it was more than that, but.
Maybe it was.
Okay.
But it's grown because of the insurance, additional insurance cost. So I just wanted to make you aware of that. The middle, go ahead.
I think it was 98. wasn't
Oh, maybe it was.
it? I think
I was thinking it was closer to 100,000.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We had several, and one of them did come out. to that.
Okay. Okay. So then the classified section is in the middle. That's what we're discussing right now. And same setup. It shows you what our actual costs would be on this proposal for next year, less this year, and then times 1.30 gives us a total increase of 609,673. The matrix funding down there, that's what I talked about. The last piece of funding the legislature approved for us is a per dollar or a per student amount, $1 per student amount that they fund us on. And this year they increased that $218. We needed to subtract $67 of that off for insurance. It left us about $113 or something like that. Am I right? No?
205
Sorry,
minus 67.
$205.
Minus 67, yeah.
$205 per student. And when we multiplied that out, we're going to end up receiving about $609,000 extra next year for that. So that basically comes out to be a wash for classified based on this proposal. And then food service is its own category. So same setup. The proposal would cost us $110,000 times 1.30. It's going to cost us an extra $143,000 in food service. Food service is a standalone account. It is its own account. It's federally funded. So it is more or less supposed to be self-sufficient. I'm going to show you in a minute that we are not going to be self-sufficient, and I'm going to show you why. But that $143,000, we have carryover currently in the food service account that can cover that, and we probably have enough carryover that can carry us for a couple of years, maybe 3 years. But we're going to have to figure out something different to either become more efficient or to regain some lost revenues, or we will have to start supplementing food service out of our district account, which we have not done in quite a while.
It's been about 6, 7 years.
we
I mean,
did
we
a-
did the first couple of years I
Yeah,
was
I
here.
know we did when
and then-
Clinton was still here and Mr. Ramey was still here. We had supplemented some, but we may have to get back to that at some point, and I'll explain all that, the reasons for that, here in a minute. But overall, between those three categories, it gives us about $246,000 in extra expenses on salary and benefits than we know we're gonna have coming in. Now, like I said, we have some carryover in food service that'll cover that 143. And I anticipate that we'll be able to cover the rest of it with, we will have some assessment growth. And so I think we'll be fine. That doesn't worry me a whole lot. Now, I also am going to tell you that in the May board meeting, I'm probably going to ask you for some additional FTEs, because I know now we need 2 elementary teachers for next year, and 2 additional, not replacements, but additional. And then we have have to figure out something with elementary alternative learning, and that may require us to hire another person or two. So that number doesn't include some additional costs that I think we're going to incur, or I'm going to ask for at least at some point. So I'm just trying to give you an idea of where we're at money-wise, but I still think that we'll be okay going into next year. You have any questions on any of that right there? Okay, I'm going to go to food service. So in 2019, the legislature passed a law, and it is called the Hunger-Free Students Bill of Rights. And the key part of this law for us, there's other parts that matter too, but the key part for this part of this discussion today is a school shall not provide a student requesting a meal or snack under this section, a meal or snack that is different from the meal or snack being provided to other students in the school. So what that means is, if a kid wants lunch, we gotta give them the same lunch that everybody gets. Everybody gets the same thing if they want a lunch or a breakfast. Part 2, school shall not prevent a student from accessing the school's meal or snack services. So whether they have money in their account to pay for it or whether they don't, we will not prevent a student from accessing the school's meal or snack services. So that means we do give a meal to anyone who requests one, whether they have money on their card or in their account or not. That passed in 2019. We had issues in 1920 with charges. And I'm going to call them charges. Basically, it's a child who shows up without any money and has a meal in their hands. They're going to get it, and it's going to go down as a charge. The next 2 years during COVID, everybody ate free. So it wasn't an issue. Now we're back to everybody's supposed to be paying or free or reduced, and times are a little harder, and we've got big problems this year with charges. Okay, that sets the stage.
So, Jody, can I also point out that we can't tell the kid, we can't really talk to the kid about what they owe. So if they come up there and they've been charging, we can contact the parent, and we do, but we can't tell the kid, hey, we can't draw attention to them. And we can't say, hey, you owe a bunch of money, make sure and go home and tell mom. We just hit charge, and the clicker just keeps everyday clicks.
So with respect to that, D, if they get to 5 or more charged lunches, we can contact their parent. It gives us permission to do that. We can attempt collection of the owed money, and we can request that they apply for free or reduced lunch. And we do that regularly. And then E there, if a student's unable to pay, you can't make them wear a wristband, can't give them a hand stamp, can't do anything that separates them from other students or identifies them in any way. Okay, so the impact on us, and just so you know, I have talked to our local representatives and senator about this, and they listened and were empathetic, but there was no bills that came out regarding this in the legislative session this time. And we are not the only ones that this affects. Every school district in the state basically is having the same issue. So I'm going to go all the way back, starting in 15-16. We've got a running total. So we had some charges before this came into effect. Usually in the years before, we would try to give a student up to 5 charges before we cut them off. And then when we cut them off, we would give them an alternate lunch, is what it was called. Okay, we gave them a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and a milk. We gave them something, but we didn't give them a full meal. And by not giving them a full meal, we did not get deemed for the full meal. But occasionally, because we gave them a leeway of 5, we would have some charges build up on individual kids. So we had a running total, that running total, that's from however many years before, we had a running total of about $3,000 worth of charges on the books. And for the most part, we knew we weren't going to collect those because a lot of them had been there a while. 16, 17, we lost another $800, so it jumped up. 17, 18, we lost another $3,800, it jumped up a little. 18, 19, where it gets big is 19, 20, when the law passed, 618, 715 went into effect for the 1920 school year. So we lost an additional $41,000 from food service that year, which now our running total is $51,000. Now the next 2 years, something odd happens. We have positive numbers in the yearly instead of negative numbers. What's that mean? Well, everybody was eating free, so we didn't have any more charges, and because our people were calling people who did have charges still on the books, we actually had some charges paid off that year, those 2 years. And so our running total went down because some people actually, they owed money from the year before or 2 years before. We made phone calls, they ended up providing some money. This year, we are currently sitting at a loss of $115,000 in food service for this year alone. So that brings our running total to $163,000. Now, as I said, we have some carryover in food service. We have carryover because when everybody ate free in 2021 and 21-22, our food service made money. Everybody's eating, we're getting full reimbursement on every meal, and we did a lot of extra stuff with breakfasts and lunches and summers. And if you remember in 1920, we were taking lunches, breakfast to kids on the buses while they were at home.
We were actually doing,
Routes.
well, we were doing that, but during that time when we were out, and then through that next summer, for the first time in the history of schooling, we were actually providing weekend meals. We would give them like a bulk of meals on Friday that would last through the weekend and then come back. And what that did is those were all fully reimbursable. So every time we'd serve a meal, the USDA would fully reimburse us just like a free, somebody they do on a free. So our dollars.
We actually got money in the bank during those 2 years, which is a good thing because now we're gonna deplete that over the next 2 or 3 years. And we're gonna deplete it pretty quick. Now, go ahead.
How many meals is that?
Well, that's hard to say because we get reimbursed a certain amount for a free meal. We get reimbursed a certain amount for a reduced meal. And then we get no reimbursement for a fully paid meal.
You talking about these numbers?
Well, the 115,000.
The 115, it would be some of them would be the 40 cents for reduced. And then some of, I had the spreadsheet. If I'd have brought it, I could have told you exactly, but and then some of them are for the full pay. So our full pay is $275 and so that would be the kids that don't qualify for anything, that don't have any money.
So at the least, if you divided 115 by about $3, you're going to get
A lot of meals.
almost 40,000 meals.
I'm just trying to think of how many kids a day that is. Is it just random or is it?
I can tell you the printout sheet, because I got a printout sheet, is about that thick. I don't know if that helps, but it was a bunch. It's a bunch of them. And there's a lot of $200 charges. There's a lot of $300 charges. And the struggle we had is for 2 years, nobody had to fill out a free and reduced lunch form. So it affects us now because people didn't know to do it or didn't do it before and they got free. So then they didn't think they would have to do it or don't pay attention to it because we tried to publicize it. And then it also hurt us in our title funding because our free and reduced lunch. Now, luckily with title funding, they froze it and we got to go back to pre-COVID times to use that number on our funding. But if they hadn't done that, it would have hurt us. But it really hurting us on this, and it will continue as we move forward.
It could be about 300 meals a day.
Because you also got to figure it's breakfast and lunch.
Right.
It's about the amount we're proposing to give as a raise for this department. So how
So-
can we get this in front of them? I mean,
So we make calls. Our food service department makes calls on a regular basis, and I think this year alone, we've actually collected on $50,000.
That's what I was told, but I can't tell you if that was 50,000 from 6 years ago, because you got to think, if you had a second grader who starts their total stays with them forever. So as long as there's a negative balance, it's still there. So I don't know where it actually, whether it was this year or from years past, but we have collected about $50,000 so far this year, or that might have been, the overall balance might be even higher.
So for us to make this better, either we have to become more efficient, which honestly, the 2 years that we were getting full reimbursement and we put money in the bank for 2 years in a row tells us if everything's going right, we're running pretty efficiently. So if everything was getting paid as it should be, we were putting money in the bank. So I think efficiency is not the issue. It's not the issue. Or we need to get our legislation changed where either the state is providing us money if they want to keep the law on the books, but we don't have a chance for that for 2 more years. Or we need to figure out a way to collect from the people who are not paying for their charges. And so that brings us to some tough decisions, you know. Do we as a school district turn debt over to a collection agency on our parents because we're feeding their kids when they're at school? That's not a real, that would not be, in my mind, that would not be a real good PR move. But they owe the money. Now, the problem from the parent side is the parent is not there when the 6-year-old child, let's say, makes the decision that they're going to eat lunch that day, even though they don't have any money. So that becomes a little bit of a tricky situation. I've contacted David Matthews to ask him, and he agrees that that is a tricky situation. He did not provide me with a remedy for that.
I do know there are some school districts in the state that have employed a collection agency to go after these charges.
I think it's twofold. We don't want to do that at all. But as we've talked about this before, there's a bunch on here that can't afford to do it and just aren't doing it.
Right. Because the law allows them to right now.
Qualify for
So, and I will give you, there's other examples. So I've talked to parents, they're really upset this year that they get a notice. We mail notices once a month. They get a notice, said, my kid owes this amount of money. And they call and say, I've told y'all, do not serve my child a lunch. I'll send their lunch with them. Do not serve them a lunch. And we continually, because of the law that went into place in 19, we cannot put something in the system that says, don't let this kid eat.
And when the child shows up with a lunch at the cashier, we can't tell them.
We cannot tell them no matter if the parent has made it crystal clear and wrote a banner on the interstate, they don't want their kid to have a lunch. We can't do it. We have to give it to them, and we have to charge. I mean, it's the law. Mm-hmm. And the intent of the law is real. So we're talking about we'd like to see it change. The intent of the law, there were some places in the state where a kid would have a tray, go to the line, there was no money, and they would take the tray away from them and throw it in the trash. I mean, we've never done that. We would never do that. But the intent of the law is to make sure kids ate, but the way they set it up making it impossible for us.
Yeah, they would put it, not in our district, but other districts would put like a big red permanent marker X on their hands or a certain kind of stamp And so the child would go home and other kids in the class would know, well, they didn't, there's something different about them. They might not have realized it was they didn't have money on their lunch account, but they knew something was different about those children.
I wouldn't do this with Logan. I made her lunch every morning. Found out she was buying lunch, so I put back in her lunch.
Well, yeah.
She got to have school lunch from now on. Saved me a lot of time in the morning.
Yeah.
And shopping.
So I showed you all this information to explain why the food service positions, we didn't feel like we could get them up to $15 right now at that base level. Even at $13 an hour, we're going to put ourselves in a position of losing $140,000 next year in salary and benefits. So, like I said, we can handle that for a couple or 3 years because we have a reserve in food service. But between now and 2 to 3 years from now, we've got to figure out something. And I don't want to, if we go to $15 an hour, then that $143,000 deficit becomes a $300,000 deficit, and then we've got to move much, much quicker. And I don't know that I have a solution to that problem. I don't know that there is a good solution without some legal change, to be honest. So.
Through our records, can we identify how many would qualify for either of those?
If they don't fill out a form, no.
They have to fill the form out for us to know that.
If they receive benefits from the state, they're automatically entered into the state automatically enters them into our system, and they're called direct certification. And so we know those children immediately. But if a parent doesn't fill out the form, and we send them repeatedly, it's not just the first of school. We send them repeatedly when we see the charges going up. So they have plenty of opportunity to fill them out. For some people, I think it's an embarrassment, or they just don't want to mess with it. What are we going to do?
We can't even use last year's free and reduced lunch list to call and make sure that they've had an opportunity to fill out the form. State gets on to us if we do that. We've had our hand slapped before for using that information, because officially nobody is supposed to have that information.
Except the child
Child
nutrition.
and child nutrition.
They're the only ones that can know what a free and reduced lunch form is, and then they only having to use it they can only use the information to process the information.
So at $13 an hour, how are we looking compared to just local food services or even other school? Do we know?
Yes, sir.
Was it in there?
Well, there's
I don't know that it's in here.
It's not in this board packet, but we've got it. You just shared it with me the other day.
Yep.
So I think I made the statement that we need to try to be competitive with McDonald's. And I'm not sure that that's who we're losing our cafeteria workers to be honest. I think some of them end up going to work at factories here in town. And I don't know that we're going to catch factory hourly rates. Audra, what's starting rate for you?
2042.
Yeah, we're not going to catch that. I think the $13 an hour, what it might do, we have had some people decide, well, between cafeteria employee and cafeteria sub and teacher sub, they try to find the best solution for themselves, and we lose some to those different spots. Is that accurate, Terry?
Yes.
Well, I don't think, we can't compare cafeteria worker to a factory worker anyway.
Right. One's a 4-hour job a day and one's
Exactly.
Right, and it's Monday through Friday, weekends, blah, blah, blah. You can start making quite a list.
So what if we knew, I don't know, 10 people left over this year because their pay, we just didn't pay enough? would those 10 people have paid if it was at $13? I know we don't know that, but I
Yeah.
mean, and we won't know it till the end of next year. You know, if everyone comes in and stays at 13, then, okay. But, I mean, at least they're getting over $1.
Yeah, and from a percentage standpoint, it's the second highest percent.
Yeah.
But the two highest percentages are in cafeteria, and we would have liked to have done more than that.
Yeah.
And we started out at 15 an hour and I about choked. Then we just kept bringing it down and bringing it down.
Well, to me, just speaking for me, the explanation makes sense. So I appreciate you taking the time to go through that. And I mean, we can't throw ourselves into
So,
something where,
Right.
like you said, we have to now expedite and figure this out next year, you know. I don't know.
so I'm not sure what everybody else is gonna do. So I did a comparison of salaries earlier this spring, a month or two ago, and went through all the 6A schools our size across the state, which is not always a good comparison because different parts of the state are different, but it gives us our population size, then the big four over on the corridor, and then other districts in our area. And if you look at other districts in our area, now they may be given raises that are gonna change all of this, but based at that time, we were paying $11.69 for a first year or a first 0 years experience, first person. And we were close. We were behind Farmington, which is an odd district. They never give a raise. It's $12.62 an hour for the first year to the year 30. They have a couple of bonus times where they just give a stipend for staying longer.
Just give generalities rather than.
And then, but we were behind Gravett by about 30 cents, 25 cents. We were behind Pea Ridge about 30 cents. We're going to be above all of them now. Now, they may get raises that change all of that, and this comparison's null and void. But those are, and then when you look at the big four, it would get us even with Rogers, and we would still be behind Fayetteville and Springdale. Bentonville, they hire out a food service that runs, they don't have any workers. They don't have any food service workers because they pay a company that runs their food service department, and they deal with it.
And so going forward, that's actually another consideration. It's not necessarily a consideration I want to pursue right now, because it would mean we would have a whole lot of employees that suddenly wouldn't be working for us. But that is an option. But even with that option, the law that I put up there a while ago still applies to us. It doesn't apply to the third-party food service provider. So we would, anytime a student charged, we would be paying the third party for
the
that
meal.
For that lunch.
So, anyway, that is a consideration though, and there are several school districts in Northwest Arkansas that have hired that out.
So are the cafeteria workers that work 4 hours a day, are they considered the full-time?
Yes, sir.
So they're getting the benefits?
Yes, sir.
School benefits?
Everything but insurance.
Right.
And we don't have that many that are 4 hours.
Most of them are 6.
Most of them are 6
Yeah,
and they
4,
work,
6,
they
yeah.
work 7. I mean,
But we have 2 different contracts with them because we have some workers that we know we don't need 6 hours a day. And that we have some people that's really fits their schedule good and they want a 4-hour contract. So if they could drive a bus in the morning.
And they do.
Come work 4 hours in food service, drive a bus in the afternoon. And so they get a full day's work, you know, that way. So we have some, but most of our cafeteria workers are on a 6-hour contract. So then they do qualify for full benefits, insurance and everything else as well. You know,
and they usually work between 6.5, 7 hours a day.
Okay, so it's 5 o'clock. We've gone through the things that we had prepared for you all. So we have a work session and then we have a special board meeting. The special board meeting has a couple of things on the agenda that should go pretty quickly. I'm going to throw this to you all. We either need to recess this meeting or adjourn this meeting. The difference is if we recess, we can come back after the special board meeting. If we adjourn officially, that's the close of this work session, and we can't start back up without giving
Public notice.
the public knowledge of starting a new meeting again. So,
But we can't keep going on with this because we need to do the other because it's at 5 o'clock and we said it's at 5.
yes,
Yeah. Well, my opinion is that we just recess this and take care of our business and then come back. And look for any questions or comments, or I don't know, maybe that's just me, but what do you guys think? You're good with either?
I'm okay with the recess.
Recess? Yeah, all right, let's do that. So,
So we get to go to close now.
we need a motion.
we need a motion and a vote for all right, we need a motion and a vote for a recess.
Motion to recess.
All in favor? Aye. All right, work session is in recess, and we can go to the playground. I heard Travis wanted to go to the playground.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll stop that, and now we're gonna go to the special board meeting. All right, so now we need to have a motion to come out of recess from our work session, correct?
Yes, I
Yes.
guess.
Yes.
Yes, Terry says yes.
Motion to end recess?
Second.
Did I hear a
Second.
There's a second? All right, all in favor? Aye. Recess is over.
Shoot.
Playtime's over, now back to work.
Okay, I'm switching meetings again.
Yeah, switch it up. While Joey's pulling that up, I want to say I appreciate all the efforts that y'all have gone to with both the certified, classified, and all that. This has been a big month of work.
It has.
And
It
it's-
always is though. I mean,
Yeah,
yes,
it's
yes, I've
tough.
done more reporting than normal, but the comparisons
Well, I
with
think
other
it's
school
really good,
districts and how much money we think we can spend, that happens every year starting in February.
Right.
And it's usually a little bit simpler to present because
Yes.
we're usually presenting
All of it at
a
once.
base raise to the teachers and a percentage to the classified, and it's not as maybe intricate. So this year well, it's probably been a good thing for us to go through and look
Yes.
at what we're doing.
I'd say so.
I think it's been valuable, not only the board, but also the staff, because everyone's listening to these and looking at it and understanding better the finances of the school. So we appreciate y'all taking the time to do this.
And all the info with the lunchroom stuff, that's invaluable today. Thank you. That we have some work we're gonna have to tackle this next year to try to remedy some of that. We don't wanna make money, but we need to try to break even
Correct.
and
Yes.
try to some way keep working so we can continue making pay raises for our cafeteria workers. I think that's important.
I said we sick Leanne on.
There you go.
So,
She's the nicest.
as I said before we went into recess, we kind of gone through all the things that we wanted to go through with you, and I would be happy to go to any of the individual pieces and talk about whatever, answer any questions if you all have any, or if you have thoughts.
Okay,
I had a question on, I don't remember which one it was, page 8.
too late.
Let's see if I can find it.
Page 8,
Page
Yeah, I
8.
think it was page 8.
that would be,
Yeah, page 8 of,
the proposed.
yeah. So there are some red changes on this page. Did you go over that, Terry?
Is that the page?
No, just the page.
Oh, I can't even see.
There's 11 pages of this document.
What's the title of it?
Page 8.
Oh, maybe it's page
Nine, that's page
Page
nine.
9.
Eight's above it, so it's page 9.
Okay. Oh, okay. No, I did not. So we have a couple of indexes that changed or were added for this upcoming year. Our district level nurse, Miss Lori Tugwell, has opted to take the 240-day contract up from her 220-day contract.
Okay.
And so to get her to adjust her and make her salary even with the other directors on a 240, her index moved to a 1.31 from where it was, and I don't remember what it was
And
before that.
it didn't give her a raise, it just compensated her for the 20
for the
days
20
that she
extra
added to her
days.
contract. So
Yes.
it's not necessarily an increase, it's just comparable, her daily rate multiplied times 20 that gets you to that 131 index does that.
And then the board certified behavior analyst, this was something that had been omitted from a previous salary schedule, and so now we have it in our salary schedule. And then the physical/occupational therapist line is just something we felt we needed to put on there just in case we ever needed to hire one. We have no intentions of doing that at this time, but we wanted it on there in case we ever needed it. Does that help?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you for clarifying.
And just so Sean and I are over that BCBA, we're required by law to have that position. And we hired somebody this last year, or during this year, we finally found somebody. They really make a lot of money outside of the school business, as do a lot of different professions. And we tried to make it comparable to our speech therapists who are in that same boat, who if they work outside the school district can make a lot more money. And then we talked about going ahead and making sure we had all of those physical occupational therapists, behavior analysts, all those people in the same category so that they were all making about the same thing if we had them. I know we contract a lot of OCPT,
All of it.
all of it right now, and if we ever found one that we could hire, we'd probably save some money, but you know, that's all dependent upon needs of students, when they need, what they need. So we may not ever have it, but we wanted it on there to make sure.
Better to have it.
Then we weren't guessing what to pay them. When we hired the BCBA, we were trying to figure out how to pay them because there's nothing that really matched in the salary schedule.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You don't need to be specific, but are there positions in this where they continually worked like overtime? And then, you know, at the end of the year, do we adjust, you know, say, well, this
What we
position actually worked an hour over what we thought, or? I
You
don't know.
mean on the classified, on
Yeah.
these? Yes, we have people that regularly work overtime and they are compensated for that overtime every month. And
So
so
I-
they get it all during the
Yeah,
year.
exactly.
I think what you're saying though, do we adjust their contract time?
Yes.
And so that's what
As
we're
we
doing
learn.
with,
That's
so.
what some of this is
So that's what we're
correcting.
doing with bus drivers. So bus drivers have
Yes,
been getting
okay.
on a 2.5 hour contract per day.
Yeah.
Well, that was based several years ago when they went to that, that was based on Steve's recommendation that he wanted to make sure that actually everybody would work more than their contract.
And
And
get
so
a-
they would get more money than you say you're getting. What we found is all of our people work 4 hours a day,
Right.
even our shortest routes. So we need, where they're losing money is if they take a sick day. We have give them 10 sick days, is that right? 9?
8.
Eight sick days a year. And then, when they take one of them, we'd only pay them 2.5 hours because that's their contract. So that would be a in my mind, I felt like we were cheating them a little bit and it was just the way it was set up. So we're going to move it to a 4-hour
Yeah.
contract. We did the same thing with food service.
The managers.
The managers, we moved them up in half an hour because they were 7.5. Now they're going to be 8 because they all work 8 hours
And
between.
again, we are already paying for that. So it's just making their earned time off equivalent to what they're actually working.
So they would get time and a half on those?
They still don't
After
get
40.
after 40. They still have to get 40.
work 40. Now, we have We have some employees that are 7.5 hour days, so they're 37.5 hours a week. If they work 40, we pay them the additional 2.5 hours at their regular hourly rate. So everybody's compensated for what they're working at every payday.
So the overtime doesn't kick in till after 40.
They must work 40, so if they take a sick day during the week and they have 42 hours, those however many sick hours don't count towards time worked, so it would all be paid at straight time.
Right,
That upsets people, but,
that's the way it is.
yeah.
Yep. I think we're all shaking our head on
Yeah,
that
y'all
one.
all got that one?
Yeah.
And then, the only other position I don't think that we talked about, and we had talked about possibly adding, and I don't think it was a marketing person, but
Communications.
yeah.
Communications.
Communications. Is that still in the plan? Are we?
I'm on hold on that right now because I'm a little bit worried about where our numbers are,
Okay,
honestly.
okay.
And I've asked my
I just
people
wanted
to
to make
put things on hold, so I'm putting things on hold.
Okay.
Terry wants to be that person.
No, Terry does not.
I think you would come across.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Any other questions or discussion? So if we feel good about this, we can go ahead and make a motion to accept this, and then you can send it on out. Is that right? Or
If you
we
all-
don't accept it, what's
Present
the
it.
wording on this?
If you all make a motion to send this to the PPC as your recommendation.
Yeah.
Then I will forward that to them tomorrow, and they have 10 days to look it over, and then we could actually vote on it at the May board meeting, one way or the other.
Can the motion be that we just send this to PPC for comment? Or does it have to be as a recommendation?
I think you all need to, for the time frame for the 10 days to start, I think you all are supposed to recommend this to the PPC as your proposal.
And they would.
And they can come and provide feedback at the next board meeting, and then you all have the option of passing it, not passing it, tabling it, whatever.
Okay. Are we good? We good with making the recommendation? Okay.
Yeah.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right. Does
That's all I have.
that concludes our work session?
Yes.
Want to adjourn?
Yes, we do.
Motion to adjourn the work session.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Work session adjourned.